Loneliness. It's one of those feelings we don't like to admit we have. It's heavy, it's quiet, and somehow, it screams inside of us. Most people think loneliness is just about being physically alone, having no one around. But the truth? You can be in a crowded room, surrounded by people, friends, family, noise, and still feel completely disconnected. That's the kind of loneliness we rarely talk about. And yet, it's the most common kind. It's the kind that creeps in slowly, unnoticed. The kind that hides behind smiles and social media posts. The kind that tells you, you're not enough, you don't belong, no one really sees you. And the worst part? We've all felt it at some point. But instead of talking about it, we bury it. We scroll. We distract ourselves. We pretend it's not there. In today's world, loneliness is more than a passing feeling. It's becoming an epidemic. According to recent studies, millions of people across the globe, especially in developed countries, report feeling lonely on a daily basis. It's not just older adults or people living alone. Teenagers, young adults, even those with active social lives, confess to feeling isolated. Why is that? Why, in a world more connected than ever before, do we feel more disconnected than ever? Part of the answer lies in the illusion of connection. We've replaced deep conversations with quick messages. We've traded presence for performance. On social media, we present our highlights, the best photos, the fun trips, the perfect meals. But behind that curated feed, behind the filters and captions, are real people, craving something more than likes and followers. They're craving to be seen, to be understood, to be loved, not for how they appear, but for who they are. There's a silence in loneliness that can be deafening, a silence that isn't just about the lack of sound, but the absence of meaning. When you feel like you have no one to talk to, or worse, that no one would understand you if you did, that's when loneliness becomes dangerous, not just emotionally, but physically too. Studies have shown that chronic loneliness can be as damaging to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Let that sink in. It can weaken your immune system, raise your risk of heart disease, and even shorten your lifespan. But unlike a visible wound, loneliness doesn't show up on the surface. It hides. And because it hides, it often goes untreated. People don't get help because they feel ashamed. Because in a society that glorifies independence, admitting you feel lonely can feel like failure. But here's the truth no one tells you. Feeling lonely doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Loneliness isn't a flaw. It's a signal. Just like hunger tells you to eat and thirst tells you to drink, loneliness is your mind's way of saying, you need connection. You need meaning. You need someone. And that's not something to be ashamed of. That's something to listen to. The problem is we're taught to silence that voice, to tough it out, to stay strong, to be self-sufficient. But human beings weren't designed to be alone. We are social creatures by nature. Connection isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And when we don't have it, we suffer. Not just mentally, but emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And yet, millions suffer silently every day, putting on a brave face, while their hearts whisper, I just want to feel close to someone. Now let's get something clear. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. Solitude can be beautiful. It's where you find clarity, peace, even creativity. Some of the world's greatest art, music, and ideas were born out of solitude. But loneliness, that's different. Loneliness is solitude with pain. It's not chosen. It's endured. It feels like an invisible wall between you and the rest of the world. And the longer you stay behind that wall, the thicker it becomes. You begin to doubt yourself. You start to believe the lies loneliness tells you. That no one cares, that no one understands, that it will always be this way. But let me say this clearly. Loneliness lies. It tells you that you're alone in your suffering. But you're not. Right now, there are millions of people feeling the same ache, the same emptiness. You are not alone in feeling alone. So how do we fight it? How do we break through that wall? It starts with courage. The courage to reach out even when it feels scary. The courage to say, "I'm not okay," even when the world expects you to be. It starts by choosing connection over perfection, by choosing vulnerability over image. When was the last time you truly opened up to someone? Not just about what's going on in your life, but about what's going on in your heart. It's uncomfortable, yes, but it's also freeing, because when you let someone in, really in, you start to feel seen. And being seen is the antidote to loneliness. That's what we all want at the end of the day. Not just to be around people, but to feel connected to them. To feel like we matter, that we're not invisible. Sometimes we wait for someone to save us from our loneliness. We wait for a text, a call, a message, a sign that someone's thinking about us. But here's the hard truth. Most people are caught up in their own storms. They're busy fighting their own battles, hiding their own loneliness. So instead of waiting, what if we were the ones who reached out first? What if we stopped expecting others to read our silence and started expressing our needs? Reaching out doesn't make you desperate, it makes you brave. Sending that message, calling that friend, joining that community, stepping into a room, even when your anxiety is screaming at you not to. These small steps, they're not small, they're powerful. Because every connection starts with an act of courage, and courage, in the face of loneliness, is revolutionary. There's a quote that says, "The opposite of loneliness is not togetherness, it's belonging. Belonging is what we truly crave. Not just to be near people, but to feel like we fit. Like we're accepted exactly as we are, flaws, scars, and all. But belonging doesn't happen by accident. It takes intention. It takes showing up again and again, even when we feel like we don't belong. It takes finding spaces where we can be real, not just liked. And sometimes those spaces aren't where we expected. Sometimes we find belonging in the comments section of a stranger's post, in a late-night voice chat, in a small online community of people who just get it, and that's beautiful. Because belonging doesn't care about distance, it's about connection. And connection can happen anywhere, as long as we're willing to be honest. Honesty is the bridge between loneliness and connection. But it's also the scariest thing. We've been taught to protect ourselves, to hide what makes us vulnerable. But vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the birthplace of connection. Think about the people you're closest to. Chances are it's not just because you've shared good times with them, but because you've shared your struggles, your real moments, your truth. That's what bonds us. Not perfection, but authenticity. And in a world that rewards surface level appearances, choosing to be real is an act of rebellion. When you say, "I feel alone," you give someone else permission to say, "Me too." And suddenly you're not alone anymore. Suddenly there's a connection, a crack in the wall, a light coming through. But let's be honest. Sometimes even after trying to connect, the loneliness stays. And that's okay. Because healing isn't instant. Building real relationships takes time. Rewiring our brains to trust again, to open up again, to hope again. It's a process. So if you're in that place right now, if you feel like you've done everything and still feel empty, I want you to know you are not failing. You're healing. You're learning to let go of fake connections and make room for real ones. You're learning to sit with your pain instead of running from it. That takes strength. That takes heart. And that's something to be proud of. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply keep going. To keep showing up for yourself, even when no one else does. So what can you do right now to start changing the story? Maybe it's writing down how you feel. Maybe it's calling a friend and being honest. Maybe it's joining a group, starting therapy, or even just going outside and smiling at a stranger. Connection doesn't always have to be deep or dramatic. Sometimes it's in the small things, a shared laugh, a kind word, a moment of presence. The key is to stay open, even when you've been hurt, even when you're tired, because every open heart is an invitation, and sometimes that's all someone else needs to step forward to. Don't underestimate the power of your presence. Just by being real, you might become the light someone else is looking for. And here's something important. Being alone doesn't mean you're unloved. Some of the most loved people on earth have felt deep loneliness. What you're going through doesn't mean you're broken, it means you're human. And humans need connection like we need air. But connection starts inside. If you want to feel seen, you have to start by seeing yourself. If you want to feel loved, you have to start by loving yourself even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. The more you accept who you are, the easier it becomes to find others who will do the same, because people can only meet you as deeply as you've met yourself. So be honest, be kind, be patient. You're worth knowing. You're worth loving. You are not invisible. So let's talk to the part of you that still feels like no one cares. The part that replays conversations wondering what went wrong. The part that scrolls through photos wondering why you're always on the outside. That part of you is not weak. That part of you is trying to protect you, trying to make sense of a world that often doesn't make sense. And you know what? That part deserves compassion. You deserve compassion. So stop beating yourself up for feeling lonely. Start listening to what your loneliness is trying to tell you. Maybe it's time to make a change. Maybe it's time to let go of what's not real. Maybe it's time to be the friend you've been waiting for. Because the truth is, you have more power than you think. You're not here by accident. If you're watching this video right now, maybe it's because you needed a reminder that you matter, that your feelings are valid, that your story isn't over. This is not the end. This is a chapter. A hard one, yes, but one that will pass. You won't always feel this way. There are people you haven't met yet who will love you in ways you can't imagine. There are conversations ahead that will change your life. There are quiet moments of joy, of peace, of connection, waiting for you. But for now, just breathe. Just know that you're not alone. Not anymore. Because by sharing this space with me, you've already taken the first step. And sometimes, the first step is everything.